Hi everyone, welcome back to FFDG Rajkot 6 community event. I'm really excited to have you on this joining the today. So let's wait for 2 more minutes and then we will start. Meanwhile, whoever joined, you can introduce about yourself. You can say from where you are. You are beginner from Dreamflow or Flutterflow, right? So just put something in your chat and then we can discuss. We will wait for 1 more minute and then we will start. Hi Krishna, hi Mitra. So you can talk more about from where you are. Have you checked Dreamflow or not? Right. Hi Upen. Thank you. Hi Yes. Okay. So let's start our event. So this is our second online event and total our sixth event. So today's session is all about something fresh and powerful. That is how you can create any kind of mobile application using vibe coding in the Dreamflow. So generally you have most of heard about what the vibe coding is, right? But actually how you can utilize the vibe coding to create mobile application. So this kind of thing we will create in today's session, and how you can actually use the Dreamflow in a better way, so that within fraction of time your entire application is created without any glitch or something, I can say, right? So to create a faster and smoother the actual way of do code using vibe coding, that we will discuss today. So today we have someone who has been pushing the boundaries in no code and low code. That is Shreyan Mehta. He is a founder of Asambhav.in. So let's not wait and take the mic to the Shreyan. Shreyan, the stage is yours.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Tim, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Shreyan.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, hello, guys. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in this amazing session by Flutterflow. We'll quickly begin with the session. I will share my screen and let me know once you can see the screen. Perfect. I think you guys can see the screen, right? All right. So, let's begin. All right. So, uh, usually whenever I take sessions, what I like to do is I constantly like to take feedbacks. कि खबर पड़े चाहे नहीं पड़ती, are you understanding or not? So I ask questions and I take replies. In online sessions, things are a little bit different, but I would still try to ask questions, and Devang and Jaydeep, they would be able to help me with that. So if you have any questions, or if you and so keep answering the question, the question that I ask, and if you also have questions, then feel free to drop in the comments or wherever you're watching it, and the team will let me know the questions. All right. So usually I like, I'll raise your hands, right? So here also you can raise your hand in a form of, you can comment your question, right? If there's a question. All right. How many of you are professionals? Can I get some count? All right. So Devang, if you can help me with the comments, how many of are professionals and how many of them are students? I can tailor it accordingly.
Yes, sure. Okay, so we have Krishna, then he's from Mongol, he's a Flow developer. We have wow, Yash Modi from Desires of Tech.
Okay, so I'm assuming like 50, like 40,
Few of
50%
our
are
students
students.
and few of our professionals. Till
Okay,
now, the
okay,
audience who have joined. So we can
okay.
say 50-50, we have the audience.
Got it, got it. So we'll consider with that and we'll move ahead. Got it, thanks. So I hope all of you are comfortable with English. I will try to have a mix of Gujarati in between so everyone is comfortable. All right. So these questions I try to tailor because by the end of the session, I want you to be like this and not like this. Right? All right. So quickly about me, who am I and what's my name? My name is not Bhupendra Jogi. My name is Shreyan Mehta, and I am founder of Asamo Solutions. We make a lot of products based on generative AI, and we are working on vibe coding since 2 to 3 years, we can say, as of now. So you can say we have a fair bit of experience making production apps, even using vibe coding, production apps for and based on generative AI. So yeah, that's a brief about me. You can follow me on our socials, etc. if you like, even if you have any doubts after the session. I'm fairly active in the community space. I co-organize two communities, GG Gandhinagar and OSW, and I'm quite active in the hackathon space as well. I given few talks, national, international. Majority, all of them are around generative AI, and these are just last since 2 3 years. And again, this is around generative AI. Last 2 3 years, my contribution towards hackathons. So this is a quick brief about me. All right. So where we start and what we want to cover is a lot. Right? So how many of you have been like, you have seen people on Twitter, on other places that I have coded my app in 2 hours and we have like 10,000 users. But you that probably would have been not coded in the fashion we used to say coded earlier, but more like vibe coded it, which is completely fine. Vibe coding is completely okay, and we should, as a developer and even as a non-tech person, we should definitely leverage it. However, there is a certain ways, there are certain pitfalls, there are certain myths, there are certain frameworks that we need to be aware about when we are going for vibe coding. We'll talk about that in length today in the session, and also we'll also talk about some recent examples that happened in this week around vibe coding, and if you would not have been knowing programming, what could have been the results. So we'll get into that. So okay, during the session, we'll switch between presentation and the coding part or the vibe coding part. So let's directly first jump to the Dreamflow part. We'll come back to presentation once again because there are certain things which will take time. So I don't want to sit on there and waste time. So let's quickly open the Dreamflow by Flutterflow. If you don't know how to do that, you can quickly go to dreamflow.app or maybe Google search it. It will be the first one. This is the website. From there, I think you guys probably would have been till this point, those who have been in the last session. So, but for those who are coming for the first time, it's fairly straightforward. Dreamflow.app, that's the main page. For those who don't have an account, you can go on Get Started, and then you can have a Google Auth or a GitHub account login. I think over here, we don't need to have a pause. It's fairly straightforward. So once you are inside it, I will show how it will look like. Right? I will. This is more or less the dashboard that would look, once you are logged in. There are different tiers, but for today's session, uh, even if you are in the free tier, it has decent credits that you can play around and move around. So let's come to this point, uh, and then we'll move forward. I'm waiting for you guys for maybe 5 or 7 seconds so that everyone can be at this point. If anyone gets stuck somewhere, feel free to let us know. And Devang, Jaydeep, guys, feel free to interrupt me. Okay, I think most of you would have been done with this one, right? You would have landed over here. There is no complex steps to be here. So I'll directly what I'll do is, first I'll show you a few things over here, and then I have written a complex prompt which I'll throw in on this one, and then we'll go back to presentation, right? I'll also tell you how I generated that prompt, what are the structures we follow. I'll go through all of that, but since the generation would take some time, so I'll put it and it will be running parallelly, right? So here, once you're there on the dashboard, you can clone the code base. We won't go into that part because we want to do the fresh from vibe coding side of things. That is not applicable. You could do it from templates. There are many templates over here, but again we won't be taking that because you want to go from prompt directly hard coding from prompt. So we are over here. I will just I generated a prompt. This is the prompt. Again, it doesn't look like a prompt because it's a very short version of it, but we'll see what it generates and we'll refine it. Over here, you can also do is, let's say if you have some Figma mockups or some wireframes, you can also attach that and Dreamflow fairly understands it. I won't say it accurately understands it, but it fairly understands what is there in the wireflow. Next, over here, we have different models. We have two models from Claude. We have the Gemini 3o, which is one of the latest models from Team Google. And we have GPT-5.1, which is also one of the latest from OpenAI. Right? Uh, I will leave it up to you, whichever preference you have. I believe 3.0 is one of the best. Uh, and Opus comes second. But yeah, I'll leave it up to you. You can keep it auto. I will also keep it auto for this purpose at the moment. And once you are done, I will just generate it. Let it run. right? It will take some time, right? Behind the scenes, what it does, I'll tell you. So behind the scenes, we have a basic code agent, something similar to what you guys might have heard about Cursor, or you might have heard about similar vibe coding platforms or IDEs. So what they does is they first take that instruction and divide it into multiple tasks with using the chain of thought command. So just like this, it has created major 5 to 10 tasks, and then for each of that, the next agent, the next multi-agent part that will take up this uh, task, break it into further more, and then generate files one by one. That is what broadly would be happening over here. And in the end, it will the last task after that is completed. What it will do is it will try to stitch everything together. And if there are errors, then using LLM at the code, it will try to fix that errors. That's the broad canvas at which all of this vibe coding tools operate on. Right. So we'll let it sink in, and we'll go back to our slide. All right. So this is the part that we already done. Next, creating our prompt. Right? I'll show how we can do that. So prompting in general, when you are doing vibe coding, I usually call it that you can do it in two ways. One, how I like to tell is zero step single shot kind of thing. So this way, what that way is, you have a complex description, you have a condensed statements, like for example, if you have 5 screens, we'll have in the single prompt, we'll have all the details of the 5 screens. In that as well, you would have more details about, let's say, what is the structure, where any button is there, what is the layout, etc. What is the text on that button, on that layout, all the information. It's more like a tree. Right? And when I'm saying tree, I mean tree in a data structure manner, right? Not like a natural tree, like you know like a tree. So when I'm saying like a tree, it means that from the root level, that is the main app, you drop down, like you have branches, which will be like, let's say, your screens or your major features. And inside that, you describe in depth, in detail, as per the context window allows, whichever features you want. So in first shot itself, the agent that is making this will have long context of what and which features are getting tied to each other, and where the like inter screen communication or inter feature communication needs to happen. So it has more context. This is my personal favorite way of doing vibe coding. Would it work for you? Maybe, maybe not. Right? It depends. It depends on a few factors. I'll come on that. Second is what is incremental multi-step shot. So this is another way. Uh, for example, if you see any YouTube video somewhere, right, or in tutorials, you will see they will start with something very simple and basic. That is, let's create this, and they'll have maybe 1 or 2 line of text, and then they will slowly add in one comment by time, one message by time, one by one. That's also a very common approach. So, is this better than that, or is that better than this? It's not about that, frankly. I mean, from my opinion, the first one is better, because in hindsight, that overall uses less number of tokens, which is good, because no matter whatever you are using, you'll have some limits, free, paid, whatever. But the limits are based on the tokens used. So the less number of tokens used is better. Also, you will be requiring less revisions in that one compared to the second one. So I feel that that is better. But as of now, there is no stance that our industry, has taken on this thing. So both are there. It's about, at the moment, no matter which vibe coding tool you're using, it's about the philosophy, right? if it is sitting behind when that tool is made. If it's Dreamflow, there will be some different philosophy. If it would be, let's say, Firebase, AI Studio, there will be some different philosophy. If it is, let's say, Google's anti-gravity ID, which is recently came in, it has its different philosophy. Cursor, different philosophy. Replit, different philosophy. Lovable, different philosophy. Zero, different philosophy. So it depends on what philosophy it has been made on, and it depends on how that agent has been constructed, right? Based on that, you should take and choose the approach. All right. In case of Dreamflow, in my experience, works fine for both the approaches, single shot and multi shot, right? Either you give a dump of all the information at once, or you do step by step, one feature at a time, one feature at a time, kind of way. It works fine. So the choice is yours. Yeah, as I said, we'll follow the first approach as you could have seen in the start of the session that I have dumped in a not so long prompt, but a medium size or a smallish size prompt, which was not exactly more like prompt, it was more like requirement list. All right. Whatever vibe coding platforms you are using or you would be using, right? This is the approach that I recommend. So, what is a PRD? A PRD is simply product requirement document. So, I usually suggest people who start vibe coding to have a PRD first. Now, why that's important? See, your vibe coding app, your vibe coding web app, your vibe coding workflow is only as good as how crystal clear your vision is, how crystal clear your idea and execution is. Because if you are unclear, then AI would also be unclear. So it everything revolves around your clarity of thought. Otherwise, we all have the same tools at our disposal at this moment in time, right? We all have ChatGPT, we all have Gemini, we all have Claude, etc. Right? But it's what and how we do from using that tools. That is what creates a line in the sand where it creates a differentiation. You can write emails, I can write emails using ChatGPT, but there would be a huge difference. You can write code, I can write code, huge difference. It comes with a clarity of thought. So PRD, coming back on the point, PRD helps you ideate first before you go onto the vibe coding platform. So that once your ideation, once what you want to make is clear and documented, then you make a condensed prompt out of it, and then you put it on a vibe coding platform. That way, it would be done in very less number of revisions. So I have written a small prompt. Again, this is not very, like written like an expert or something. It's a very basic prompt, written in very basic language, so that all of you, even if you're a student or if you're working with prompts since 4 or 5 years, doesn't matter. All of you can use this. Right? Uh, it has just basic context, what is there, right? What could all be there, etc. And what outputs I require. So that's an example of what we are looking, right? So in this way, you can have a prompt, in which you can create a PRE for yourself. You mention what is the overall theme of the app that you are making. You mention what are the features, what are the USPs. You also can add into the same section that ask questions till the time you are not satisfied, right? So LLM will work with you to refine it, right? So slowly your definition, your features would be refined. You can also ask LLM to do critical thinking with you on that one. This is not, again, this is not a structure or something prompt that you can copy paste and you can follow. You can make it on your own. And I recommend doing that because that will have a you have good clarity of thought. Okay. Before we move any further, let me quickly check what point we have reached in this one. Okay. I think we have, sort of, that prompt has sort of worked. Uh, it's loading up. Let's see that first, then let's go back there. Okay, so I'll quickly give you a context of what prompt I have added and what we are trying to achieve over here. So I thought of a use case where this app is for a a sales guy who works for a bank or an NBFC, right? NBFC is a non-banking financial corporation. So let's say you want a car loan, you want a home loan. So someone from that bank or some third party will come at your home or office. It will take documents from you. It will take photos of the location, etc. Right? So it's a B2B use case which I wanted to highlight. Why I specifically choose a B2B use case? Because it's a little bit complex to make. B2C, it's fine. It's easier. Again, the major difference between B2B and B2C is in B2C, design is very important. For example, if you see, any B2C app like Cred, you see any other B2C app, they have fantastic designs. When you're doing vibe coding for making the app, you'll see in most cases it would generate blocky layouts. What I mean by blocky layouts? Layouts which are standard, which are good, which are pretty, but are standard. It won't generate something which is out of the world. It won't generate something which is unique, right? Which should be the most important point, if not most, and one of the most important point when we are doing for B2C apps, because the end customer would be awed by the UI UX experience. In case of B2B, it's fine. It's not that important. The functionality is more important, right? Most of the B2B apps are blocky in nature. So that's why we choose that. Okay. Now quickly let's review the app and I'll tell you what are features we were planning to have. So these are the cases that is assigned to that agent. Right? If you click on that case, it will give you loan details, applicant details, timeline, additional notes, right? How many visits have been made, documents, etc. These are the cases which are assigned to this person, the pending lead, etc. Apart from that, here again the same list of cases can be seen. Then we have this map feature. What I wanted was that, imagine if it's a sales guy, right? He would probably need to visit 10 different places or 5 different places in the same or single day. So using AI, we can optimize the route. That okay, first you will go to Shivranjani, then you will go to ISKCON, then you will go to maybe Gotha. Right? I'm saying the names of Ahmedabad cities areas. Right? It will be different for Rajkot. Right? It will be different for Mumbai, obviously. So based on that, it will give an ordered list of which he or she should go first, and then go next and go next. Here, again, this is not something which AI suggested. This is what I got in my mind, and I added AI that okay, we should have something like this. It's a good feature to have for the end user and for the business. Plus, it's very easy. What I asked that in the list that it provides, also have an icon like this, which will have the geo location or the lat long. So when the user clicks on it, automatically the default app, that is, it could be Google Maps, it could be Apple Maps, whatever maps they use, it will open up and what location they can add in. like whichever whatever they want to go with. So that's something which I have added. Next feature, these are the leads, right? Whom he would need to be calling. You can also add a new lead. Again, all of this is created with just single prompt. And this is his profile. Arjun Kapoor is some random number, employee ID, etc. All of this earlier to make this would have taken, if not months, then weeks, right? Maybe even months. But all of this just happened while I am just talking, right? I have not written a single line of code as of now. So it's good. Tech is good, especially for developers, how this can be utilized. For productionized apps, maybe, but it could be fine for people who are freelancers or freshers, for people like us who are in industry who need to serve little bit big clients. For that cases, it is difficult. Why? Because if you do a productionized app directly from here, you might face some challenges. But it is good for developers when they are doing brainstorming, when they want to send some POC. For example, Gujarat, like I think most of you would be watching to this video, would be from Gujarat, from India. We are a service industry, right? We create apps, web apps, whatever, for the client based on their custom requirement. We don't have product that we can showcase. So this is good for pre-sales. This is good for companies to show POC. अच्छा हाँ ऐसा बनाया है हमने. We have made something like this. This is can be done. These are the capabilities that we possess. Right? This gives a lot of confidence to the end customer, to your end client. Okay, I will quickly go back on the slides. So how you should take an approach to do vibe code, something like this. So this is a framework that I have written down. It's again not something which is like an industry standard because there's no industry standard yet, right? The industry is slowly molding itself around this. So I have a phrase, small phrase for this. The fastest coders deploy constantly. So we have TFCDC. So first is thinking. So the PRD part that we discussed earlier, that comes in thinking. This is the most important phase of the complete app. Why? Because unlike regular coding, when we are generating code on the fly using any web coding tool, maybe Dreamflow or something else, if fundamentally what we have instructed, the first few prompts or first prompt as the main parent context window, something which is not finalized, but it's like kacha pakka, raw cooked. We are not giving full clarity to LLM. We are opening up many windows for ambiguity. And when there is ambiguity, whether it is a developer, whether it's AI, they go mad, they go crazy, right? So thinking is the most important piece or the most important you know step in this process. Once that is done properly, rest everything is fine. Side note on this, whiteboarding could also be done with by people who are technical product managers or technical project managers or just project managers or people who have clarity of thought. You might not be necessarily be a programmer. However, there are certain cons for that as well. We'll cover that as well down the line. But I personally know few people who are not programmers, but they have clarity what they want to get made and they nail it. Next is framework. So when I say framework, it doesn't mean framework like Flutter. doesn't mean framework like React. The framework means what structure or architecture should it follow, right? For example, let's say, do we want it to follow? I'm saying from the React context. Do we want it to follow a page, container, component kind of a structure? Like, again, the code would all be the same. There is no differentiator on the code side. But on the foldering structure, on the internal architecture, on the framework side, that is how it will be defined. So that is also something that we need to provide as a context. Now, this framework part is a bit tricky. Why? Not all vibe coding platforms honor your framework command. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Let's say you are creating a web app using any, on React or Next or whatever, using Dreamflow or whatever platform. If you specify that, "Acha, I need this folder structure, I need in this framework," it might not follow that. Why? Because it has been trained on certain framework, certain structure, and the structure is a part which is not completely given access to LLM to determine and to give, it doesn't have access to change that part a lot. Because if LLM hallucinates or makes up a mistake in that part, it will break the app, right? You can understand it in a way that it's like a template, right? It will have some base components and some base structuring on which it will create. You might be using versus v0.dev, it would have same structure, no matter what you write it. Okay, arguably v0.dev might not be like a vibe coding platform, but yeah, so that's second keyword framework. Third is checkpoints. Again, very important part, not as important as the first part, but what we mean by checkpoints, if you are developers, probably understand what checkpoint is. I am talking about versioning or VCS. You can use Git, you can use any other, version controlling system. Git being the most popular one for maintaining the versions. Now, if you're doing a regular coding, maintaining versions, is it important? Absolutely. But when you are doing vibe coding, that becomes even more important because once you are into vibe coding phase, there is a high likely chance that you give some command to change something. And not only it does not change that, but it will go and break something else at a, maybe at a core level, which you would need to spend maybe few days or maybe a week to fix that thing. So if you don't have a versioning, it would be a big hassle and a big issue. But yeah, if you have proper versioning done, then it's fine. You can just roll back on the previous checkpoint, or in Git's world, you can say on the previous commit. Okay. Next is debugging. Now, why I written this in the part of framework? This is there because, see, when we are designing the prompt, when we are making the initial part, we also need to think about the debugging process in mind. LLM doing the debugging is different than an experienced program doing the debugging. Right? For example, it will do code, etc. If there are some errors, just like you go and search and put, into ChatGPT or Gemini, the error, the agent will do the same. It will go and ask LLM, and then LLM would say something else. Although it will have context of the folders, files, etc., it won't solve it all the time. So we need to make sure that we keep this debugging thing in mind. And last part is context. So context is very important. For example, in this app that we made, we have written the context that this is for this particular user, who is the, primary user, who is the secondary user, who are the stakeholders, etc. so that it helps in the thinking part and it adds into the LLM's thinking process and chain of logic process. Again, this is not an industry standard structure or something. This is what I like to follow. This is what I like to tell people to follow. You can change it to maybe 4 points. You might think framework is not that important. That's fine. You might think debugging is not that important. That's fine. Right? As per your experiments, you can change these frameworks. Okay. Before we go over here, let's come back on the app that we have made. Okay. Let's quickly see some parts of the Dreamflow app. So here, some of you might have used Android Studio or some similar platforms earlier, right? Since you guys are part of this session, then probably you would be somewhere around mobile development. And if you are somewhere around mobile development, you would have definitely seen or worked upon Android Studio or similar, IDEs or compilers. So this structuring is fairly simple, right? It's again a tree structure, and you can select the element and you can do changes, whatever, right? Fairly simple, self-explanatory. I won't go into that. This part is very easy, very helpful. Again, quite self-explanatory, but let's try to change something. For example, uh, we have a yellow color somewhere, but I can't see. Yeah, here is light on warning, dark warning, light warning. Let's change maybe the primary one so that it's pretty evident. I'll just copy paste this so we can reword and maybe make this F. We make this F again. We make this F again. Make this 0. And let's do hot reload. This color has changed, right? So it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. I'll quickly change it to what it was earlier. Also, when you do hot reload, just like Android Studio or some other platform, it is not just changing on the preview, right? It's not like यहाँ change किया तो यहाँ change होगा. No. Once you change this, it will go and change inside the code, inside the Dart files. If you go inside here, right, you will have some place where you will see the colors, right? For example, this is where you'll see this values, this one, app style, font size, etc. Right? This is a different thing. These are the colors. See, if you see dark mode, light mode, here you will see once you are changing over here, it will change in the code. Then it will change on the preview. Right? This is how it is getting reflected. I will reword this once again. Yeah, it's perfectly fine once again. Next feature right over here is this inspect mode. Now, a lot of you might be using, a lot of you might have been working on web also. And in the developer tools, we have inspect mode. It's almost similar to that. Let's say I'll take this one. Now, if you see the code part, it directly, helps us open this one, which element that is in the code, right? See, it has having this value and this size box, etc. So if you want to directly go and change code for any particular part, for example, I will toggle something else. Let's do this. It's a card, right? So when you go on code, it will See, it opened the case card one. So you can directly open, inspect, just like you do on a regular web icon. Okay. Next features, we can of course, obviously we can change fonts, dark mode, light mode, etc. Won't go into that. Next feature is assets. So here we don't have any images, etc. Right? Because it's not media based. But if you have, you can upload assets from here. You can upload files, you can upload folders. Right? From here you can upload, and then you can assign it on the app. Right? Just from the GUI itself. In fact, you can also ask this agent to use that image using its name, and it will attach it. Next, we have two integrations readily available over here. One is Supabase, other is Firebase. So Supabase and Firebase both are quite similar. Firebase is a product from Team Google, and Supabase is a similar product, very much similar to Firebase. So you can get access to things like authentication. You can get access to things like, database. For example, in Firebase we have Firestore and Fire Real Time DB. There are two stores. You have cloud procedures. You have push notifications. A lot of the things are there in Firebase. So we can also try to use that. How? Let's see. Let's go over here. Before we go and connect to Firebase, let's do one thing. Let's open Firebase. For people who don't know how to open Firebase, again, let's go firebase.google.com. For whichever, and I would recommend using the same, email ID, Google ID that you logged in, so that everything is easily synced. This is the same account. You click on go to console. Don't click on studio. This if you click on studio, you will go to Firebase AI Studio. Let's click on go to console. You will land on something like this. I'll show once again. Now I will create a project. The project's name, I will keep it some field. I mean, let's do this. That's fine. Wait, I don't want Google Analytics. Let's skip it. So this is the Firebase console of that project. I'll talk about this part as well. Something which is going on for this week, not relevant to Dreamflow though. We'll skip this part, like as of now, the build part, etc. Whether this was the Firestore database that I was referring to, we'll skip all of this as of now. Over here, let's come back on Dreamflow. Click on connect to Firebase. It will say give you the same account for Google Auth. Use the same account. It will then ask for the projects. Uh, Let me quickly enter the code once I get it. This is a standard issue. Sometimes you don't Google Auth code 2FA. I'll probably resend it. Okay, so it is there. We are signing in once again. Yeah, just like LIC policy, जगह जगह चौकड़ी दिख रहा है जहाँ सही करता जाओ, right? So, viewer administer all of 5 of the 10 settings, yes. Cloud data store, yes, and this one as well. We can revoke it whenever we want, and you can trust Flutter Flow company for not accessing your personal data. All right. So if you find, if you don't get this message, then you should probably disconnect and re-log in once again. It can happen in Google Auth or something like that. But if it is authenticated, then it's fine. Next here, select a project. I select the project and I'll continue. One good thing over here is it will automatically fetch the project name. You see in Firebase, if you go over settings, you will see the project name, project ID, project number. All would be automatically fetched over here. That's a really good and amazing thing that even like I knew that this is over here. People who don't know, they don't need to worry. In Dreamflow, it will automatically fetch it. It would take some time. So till then, let's quickly go and see some common myths about vibe coding. So there are many things that when you're a student, and since this thing is very new, you might be thinking, "Acha, ye sahi hai," and you might be thinking that this is applicable. So I'd like to take advantage of this time and burst some of the myths of vibe coding. So first myth that I would like to burst is vibe coding means no planning required. That's absolutely incorrect. As you see, the app that we are building right now, I have thought for it. I have thought for the features that is required. I have thought for the edge cases that we need to take care of, and etc. So you need to have good planning. Otherwise, your app would be as good as nothing. So that's a myth. Next myth is AI will understand everything automatically. Again, attached to the first one, it's not like that. Let's say if you go and just upload few documents, okay, PDF डाल दिया, and it will understand. No, it won't. Right? If you go and upload some screenshots without any context, it won't understand. Then next is you don't need to know coding basics if AI is generating code. This is really good point. Something that we were discussing off the stage before. See, right now it is generating code, and let's say hopefully it's working. The thing is, when you require to know coding knowledge is once you ask Vibe Coding app to change something and it doesn't, or once the Vibe Coding app gets stuck at some error, then at that point, for a lot of errors, any web coding app, it will go into loops and loops and loops. Either will go up and down, sideways, or it won't be able to solve it. The only way to solve it at that point is to go old school, to download the source code, see what is going wrong, and debug it the manual way. That is the only way when the agent goes into circles. So that is again a myth. You actually need to know coding basics, even if AI is generating the code. However, it is completely okay to not know or might not be an expert in that particular language or framework. For example, I might not be an expert in Dart or Flutter, or I might not be an expert in let's say Android. But if I'm good at programming in React, Angular, whatever, any frameworks, modern day frameworks, I understand the basic concepts. I understand how loops work. I understand how conditional statements work. I understand what data types is. I understand what data structures is. That is important. Okay. So that part is required. Specific framework or language sugar syntax, good to have, but might not be necessarily for a small app. For an enterprise app, yes, even that is necessary. Next point is AI generated code will always follow best practices. Of course, it's not correct because AI is also trained on average code, which means it is also trained on average practices that is followed by developers. So it's not always the best practices. You can't rely completely on it. Next is vibe coding is fully production ready output. I mean, you can deploy to production. Being the code deployable is one thing, and being it production ready is a different story, right? So can it be deployed directly? Yes. Even in Dreamflow, on top you have this feature that over here directly become published and it will directly deploy it. Okay, so this one is done over here. So I'll also show that part. So when you click over here and publish, you would require, of course, iOS keys and Android keys if you want, right? I'm not sure about the web development deployment. So you need all these keys, but you can directly deploy it from here. And same goes for Android, right? In fact, if you don't want to deploy it directly from here, what you can do is you can go over here, click on this, download the code, and then if you have Android SDK and a few more tools, you can make your own build and download the APK and run it. You don't need to deploy it, right? This deploying is for the stores. You can have the app working without the stores as well, right? Another option over here is you can click on this, it will give a QR code. Right? For example, if you click on it, it will have a QR code. You can scan it on and in web view, you'll be able to see this app. Okay, there are some errors. Okay, yeah, it fixed it.
Without errors, there is no program can exist. Right,
Sorry,
Shreyan bhai?
sorry.
Without errors, no program can exist.
Yeah, if debugging is the way to remove the bugs, programming is the way to add the bugs.
Yes.
So that's obviously there, always there. Good point. So once this Firebase is configured over here, like we are switching between the slide and this because it takes time, right? So once the project is set up over here, you do the configuration. Uh, then this is the client code. This is where in the app you will add the Firebase JSON and all the other things which will have the client ID, etc. So that is being added over here, right? So we'll quickly go back to this one. Now we're about to complete these points. So we talked about the production ready part. Next is skip the architecture. I think we covered it broadly. The debugging part is also covered broadly, and the last point is also we covered, right? That we still require developers to make it good scalable code to solve and debug problems which AI can't and which web coding cannot. So we still need real developers. Okay. So common pitfalls of web coding. Ambiguous prompts, as I said, right? It will give some inconsistent outputs, generated files overwritten because of improper prompts. Now, what this means? This is not very applicable to Dreamflow. It is for apps like Cursor, etc., which has a lot of file access. So you do add this file, change this, change that. Sometimes due to the scoping, it overwrites and it lost the working part of certain files. Like, again, if you are consistent Git or VCS, it can be, you can say, revoked or reverted. Third point is very important: lack of component reusability. Now, again, this is dependent on how you make it and which tool you are using. Some tools nowadays are good, smart. They understand that if you have a component called card, we can reuse it at multiple places. Earlier, a lot of them were not able to understand it. And for every screen, they will make new cards, they will make new components, which defeats the purpose of architectures which are like MVC, like model view component, right? Or MVCC, model view controller component. In that component, like the whole context of like frameworks like React, is it is component based. So एक component एक बार बनाओ and then reuse it multiple places. So that concept gets defeated in a lot of times in vibe coding. That's where, as a developer, we need to be more aware what's going on. Next, state management becomes messy if not defined upfront. Absolutely correct. That's why, again, in the framework, the thinking part is relevant, because if that is not done, then state management. I mean, I won't go into much details. People who are developers who will understand. We have third-party libraries like, let's say, Redux, Mobex, etc., to manage the states of the applications. The state means between the screens, between the components, you want to pass certain things. That's where the state management comes in. It doesn't mean local storage. I won't go into more depth of that. Next, mixing multiple styles. Again, a lot of times, especially earlier generational web coding tools, they were doing some styling in CSS, some in Tailwind, some custom CSS, some in less SAS. There are all different types of CSS preprocessors. Okay, here, I was just checking. Yeah, it is still going on. No issues. It is done. Find my. Hmm. So this is there. Then I won't go much into hallucination part because I think a lot of you would be knowing about that. So hallucination, I won't go into much. This is a very good point. Next point. That is circular or duplicate components and circular or duplicate dependencies. Components we briefly covered earlier. Dependencies as in the dependencies that is written above about hallucination, that is also there, and also dependencies as in the versioning, right? That is there. Now, there could be certain dependencies which is for certain component, for certain UI, for certain methods that needs to be maintained, but for certain one it does not. So it can do some mess ups because in general, usually all web coding tools take the latest LTS versions. For example, if you're using MUI, it will take the latest MUI version, the LTS version, probably 7 or 8 version is going on, right? But some of the code might not be supported in that. So that's also an issue. Yeah, coming on the point for the developers, we also require that. So if we see on the Firebase, right, when we logged in, there was some warning written. So recently, last week, there's a new vulnerability that has come in on Next apps, Next.js apps. So if you would not be a programmer and you would have vibe coded and deployed an app, you would have been, for the lack of the better word, uh, you'd have been facing a lot of consequences, more than 10 lakh or 20 lakh web apps. Oh, more than that actually. Around almost 1 CR or 10, like some number like that. Like 10, 100,000. That was the number. Maybe it's million. Yeah. Around million to 2 million apps worldwide have been impacted due to this vulnerability in last few days. So if you would not be a developer, you might not be able to fix it and patch it with the appropriate Next.js router versions. So again, development is required for that part. You can't fix it using white coding. We are going to the end of the session. We're almost end of the time. Just concluding 5 7 minutes.
So, Shendra, there is a question came from audience that does your skill get worse if you do a lot of vibe coding?
Can you repeat?
Does your coding skill get worse if you do vibe coding?
That's a very good question. Yes and no. Directly due to vibe coding, does it get worse? No. But for example, people like me, right? Now I don't do programming day in, day out because I have a team of developers who report to me, who report to other team of developers who report to me, like project managers. I have a hierarchy in my company. So due to that, even before vibe coding, my coding, I won't say strength was reduced, but I'm not like a ninja programmer how I used to be, irrespective of vibe coding part. Daily practice has not been there. But due to vibe coding, that practice would have been reduced. That would impact a little bit on your coding things, but it don't deplete it. Once you're back in the game, it will take you some time, but you'll be fine. I think I will keep that question like that.
Yep,
Okay. Uh, I'll just cover a few points, and I think we are almost by the end of the session.
sure.
So, few more pitfalls. Uh, just a second, we'll check the status on the Firebase. Okay, this client code is also be generated. It's loading. See, this is the thing in vibe coding. It takes patience, right? Sometimes the simplest of things might not work, right? So it still takes time, right? For example, we started at 2 p.m. IST, and approx 2 5 to 10 we have added this code. We have not written code manually. We have just done clicks here, click here, one click there, but it's still almost an hour, right? So it takes time. We need to be patient, just like in regular development. Okay. Once this preview is getting loading, I also the deployment. Yeah. So last few points, vibe coding at times ignore certain security parameters. It ignores certain design systems. By what this segment I mean is that when you're doing a regular development, you might have a design system. For example, in your Figma or whatever app you use, you'll have first design elements, design system that acha, buttons would look like this, secondary buttons would look like this, cards would look like this, etc. And you stick to it in all the screens so that the UI is consistent. Whereas in this, it might not follow it. That's an issue. That's why it cannot be a production level app directly using vibe coding. It could be a good POC, it could be a good app for a freelancer. But for an enterprise, we need to have end-to-end consistent UI. But that pitfall still exists. Next point, difficult scaling the project once initial vibe becomes messy. Yes, that's also true. Why? A lot of times the structure is not scalable. Right? A lot of times the structure is not scalable. So initially it's fine. But let's say if the structure is in a way that the routing is not proper, the screens and the components are not proper. It's good for a few components, for few screens, but let's say if it expands to 50 screens, it becomes quite messy. However, to give the benefit of doubt, that is also a case when developer does it. Right? Developers are also not doing good code at a lot of times, but it's not very reliable. You can say it's not like कि हमने 2 hours screen का prompt add किया उसने 2 hours screen बना दी. It works perfectly. No, it doesn't. It sometimes it breaks it. And the last part is sometimes certain loops or queries are inefficient. Again, that's not something which is happened every time. It depends on which models are being used. It depends on what context it is. It's a very variable thing, but it could also be there. All right. So we'll be moving towards the conclusion of this. This is taking a lot of time, a lot more than I expected. This Firebase thing. So I think we'll keep it there. But I think you got the gist of it. Here we can see some of the things. I mean, there's no data yet, but you'll see some service accounts, etc. created over here. And once it is done, you can also see data in our Firestore. This is the default Firestore. Right now, there is no data yet because it's not yet completed right now. So it will do auth and all the other things. It's working on it. All right. So moving towards the end of the session, right? There are many things we can go on in this one. I'll try to move towards the conclusion of this. Uh, this was it for now for the second session on Dreamflow. If you guys have any questions, I think we can take that. We're already about time for questions, but still maybe we can take one if possible. One side note, just towards the outro of my session, we are organizing a hackathon. I'll just throw in a link if you are interested. Again, it's around vibe coding, etc. That's why it is there. You can screenshot it, or you can see our video. It's one of the biggest in Gujarat. All of us are like doing it collaboratively. So maybe screenshot it and look into that. And yeah, I think that's a wrap. And you can scan the QR to connect with me if you want. And yeah, if you want somewhere into AI, go home, look into MCP, A2, and other protocols is good. Keep yourself up to date with the current AI waves, irrespective of web coding you like it or not. It's something that developers need to know. All right. Thank you for inviting me over here. Questions?
Thank you so much, Renbai, for amazing session on deep diving into the vibe coding using Dreamflow. And I hope audience has also enjoyed a lot. And audience, you are all on. If you have any questions, throw out on your chat, and we will have a discussion. Or else you can also connect with the Shreyan. You can scan the QR codes. Let me just. Guys, remember this is just a beginning. Dreamflow, the vibe coding are just the tools, but there is a lot of more learnings, and we are also lining up a few more workshops, hands-on sessions. So stay tuned with the community, and I can also see. Okay, I think it's we are on time. We can wrap up the session for now. If you guys have any questions, you can join us. You can directly connect with Shreyan as well. That's all for today. Thank you to the wonderful audience, to the wonderful speaker we have for the amazing session, and we hope we'll soon have a few more sessions available. Thank you, Shanfai, for your precious time you spent with
Thank you
us.
so much for having me. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, team.